The details discussed in this video come from publicly available information, including law enforcement updates, press conferences, news reports, and statements from those involved. This case is ongoing and information may change as new developments emerge. No arrests or charges have been made at this time. Any person mentioned in this video is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. Nothing in this video is intended to accuse, defame, or imply wrongdoing by any individual. My purpose is to summarize the known facts, raise awareness, and encourage the public to stay informed. Good morning, everybody. It is the 4th of April, and we are well into the 3-month mark of missing Nancy Guthrie. And just a little scenario that I put together is the fact that, when anybody goes missing, it always carries some type of weight to it. A lot of us become emotionally attached to somebody we don't even know. And in this particular case, we have a country, we have a nation that grew very attached to Nancy Guthrie and this case. To understand the urgency and the heartbreak surrounding her disappearance, we really need to start with who is Nancy Guthrie and what happened to her in the hours before she vanished. So this is going to be a timeline from the last time she was seen to present day. I'm not going to try to make it too long, but factual. So we're going to start off with the fact that Nancy Guthrie, as we know, is an 84-year-old mother, a grandmother, and she's a longtime Tucson resident. She's known for her independence, her steady routines, and how much she loved her family and community. She seemed to have handled her own errands. She stayed close with her family, and she lived alone in the Tucson foothills, where it's absolutely beautiful, peaceful, and quiet. Although she no longer attended church in person, she faithfully watched services online with some friends on Sunday. She was dependable, she was organized, and she was always engaged. She's the type of woman who didn't miss appointments. She would have called if she couldn't make it to an appointment or to something that she did on a regular basis, like her church services. That's why what happened the next day, January 31st, is so alarming. Nancy had dinner on January 31st at her daughter Annie's home and son-in-law, Tommaso. We do not have any evidence at this time if anybody else was present. It was a normal night. It was filled with conversation, the comfort of family that sat around and played games after having a nice evening dinner. Nothing about that evening has hinted towards danger. Approximately 9:30, Nancy apparently wanted to head home, and it was approximately 9:48 p.m. that she was dropped off at her Tucson home. There's evidence that indicates her garage door opened and closed shortly after she was inside. The time frame is 9:48, the garage door opened, and at 9:50 p.m., the garage door closed. That was the last confirmed moment that anybody has seen her. In the morning hours of February 1st, a series of small but very significant events unfolded. Digital traces that investigators now believe marked the window of her disappearance. At 1:47, Nancy's doorbell camera became disconnected. At 2:12, the system detected motion at her front door, but because she did not have a paid subscription, at that time no evidence was saved. The FBI has been able to scrape some video footage from that, but very little, and we call the evidence that they found and the picture of the gentleman at the front door, and I use the term gentleman very loosely, is all we have, and he will be named as Porch Guy. So moving forward, at 2:28, her pacemaker app stopped. It was no longer transmitting any data. That is a timestamp that the authorities have now come to believe is the moment the investigators believe Nancy was taken from her home. Later that morning, when Nancy didn't log in for her normal church service and didn't appear at her friend's home, and received the call that she had not done so. They went immediately to her house. At 11:56 a.m., the family members had arrived at her home and instantly sensed something was wrong. Nancy's car was still in the garage. Her purse and phone were inside. She has hearing aids that were left behind. But most importantly, more than anything else, Nancy would never have left the property without her medication that she needed to take on a regular, daily basis at certain times for her heart condition. So the family called 911 within minutes. Deputies arrived quickly at the scene, and after doing an evaluation, they realized that something had happened, and they went along with the assumption that Nancy had been abducted from her home. Deputies quickly began to search the home, surrounding areas. They talked to neighbors, but Nancy was gone. The investigators concluded that she had been taken from her home, a rare and deeply disturbing scenario for an elderly 84-year-old woman living in a quiet, peaceful, beautiful neighborhood that she had been in for very close to 40-plus years. Over the next several days, the case expanded dramatically. The FBI joined forces with the Sheriff's Department. Search teams combed the area, the desert. There were drones, dogs, volunteers that covered miles of terrain. Detectives canvassed neighborhoods, collected surveillance footage, and they interviewed residents. And some of that is still going on to this day. There are a lot of people, especially a lot of the YouTube streamers, that are still so attached to this case, and they want desperately to keep it alive, and they are out there still reporting on it and searching for Nancy. Over the next several days, time went on. There was thousands of leads that came into the tip line. Each lead does take a long time to confirm. A key piece of evidence did emerge. A masked man wearing gloves and carrying a black Ozark Trail hiker pack was seen on a video approaching Nancy's home around the time her doorbell camera went offline. But to this day, his identity is not confirmed, and he is unnamed and unknown. Then came the ransom communications, several of them, emails sent to different media outlets. One was including cryptocurrency. While investigators have not confirmed their authenticity, they treated these seriously, as did the family. Nancy's family then released a very emotional public message pleading for direct contact with the abductors or abductor, asking for some type of proof of life, to give them something to hold on to. So there is still a $1 million+ reward out there. As weeks passed, the investigators gathered additional information. They found multiple gloves that led to nothing. They did have hair that was found in the home, and that sample of that hair was sent to a lab in Florida. The lab in Florida took that evidence, they investigated it, they did several tests on it, and they decided that the sample then needed to be sent to another lab, which was the FBI Quantico lab, for further testing and evaluation. While early reporting actually suggested this was a breakthrough in the case, officials have now clarified that the sample was not new evidence. It was evidence that was originally submitted to the lab in Florida, and now it had been released to the FBI for further testing, which could take several months. Despite the massive effort, no suspect has been named, and no confirmed sightings of Nancy have been reported. In the months that followed, the case remained active, and it is still active today. It is not a cold case, and there are still over 500+ tips that need to be investigated. Deputies continue to search washes, trails, remote desert areas, and the detectives are still combing through hours and hours of video. The family offered a $1 million reward, and the FBI added another $100,000, and it is understood that another $100,000 was donated by an anonymous source. More recently, in late April, just recently, there's new surveillance footage that surfaced showing a masked man stealing a potted cacti plants in the same general area of the Nancy Guthrie home. While the timing and behavior has raised a lot of public speculation, investigators have not linked that individual to anything to do with Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. Today, as of May 4th, 2026, the investigation is still open, it is still current, it is active, it is not a cold case, and is still very deeply felt within the community and the family. The Pima County Sheriff's Department continues to pursue leads, analyze forensic evidence, and ask for the public's help. Nancy Guthrie remains a case that is not cold and hopeful. We are leaning on faith, community support, and the unwavering belief that answers are still possible. Nancy Guthrie's disappearance is more than a mystery. It is a family's worst nightmare, a community's heartbreak, and a reminder to all of us of just how quickly life can be disrupted. But it is also a story of persistence, of people who are refusing to give up, and of a woman whose life, her presence, her love, continue to matter profoundly to those searching for her. If anyone knows anything, it does not matter how small you may think it is, please contact your local law enforcement agency or the FBI. A combined reward of over $1 million still remains available for information leading to answers. Nancy's family, her community, and everyone that has been following this case for over 3 months, we're still waiting, we're still hoping, and we still believe that the truth can be found. And as a footnote, I do want to put in here, because there's several social media streamers that I have gotten to know pretty well, and they are extremely dedicated to this. And I know the community has had some issues with them being around, and they don't like people in their neighborhood anymore. And in some ways I can understand that. They want to get back to reality and they're normal. But these streamers are keeping Nancy Guthrie's name alive. They are still talking every single day about this case. They're praying for her. So I commend them, because the mainstream media is not saying very much right now. Now, this is just my own personal analysis and opinion. You can take it for what it's worth. I pray each day that we will get some new clues, some different evidence, and something that can possibly lead us to returning Nancy Guthrie to her family so they can have some peace. Thank you all for listening today, and I hope to talk to you again soon. I will be keeping some new, fresher updates on my feed as soon as possible. This is a new site, but I do not want to let this case go cold. And I want all of you to please remember, one little thing that you say may just be the link that's missing to what somebody else said. So keep the tips flowing, please. I wish all of you a good day. Stay safe, and God bless. And God bless Nancy Guthrie.